Hello everyone and welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well. So it's time for another one of my top 10 countdown videos on the channel, and this time I'm counting down my top 10 indie films of the last 10 years, and I feel like this would be a good follow-up video if you've seen my top 10 non-horror films of 2024. There is a very little bit of crossover with that video as well, so do check that one out if you haven't already. So I'm a big indie cinema fan. I guess many of you probably know that if you're already subbed to my channel. I really enjoy independent films. I think they bring something different from what a lot of more mainstream films would bring. I mean, they allow more freedom for directors to often express their artistic visions and show their artistic flair. And I also think that these kind of films are often present with more relatable characters or relatable situations than a lot of the more mainstream films do. That's not always the case, but I often find it since I've delved more into indie cinema over the past kind of decade or so. So obviously that's an interesting thing as well, is that it's been roughly 10 or 11 years since I've really gotten into indie cinema, so I feel like I've got enough of a sense of the breadth of the films I've watched in the last 10 years to provide a good list here as well, and I hope you get some enjoyment out of this list if you check any of these films out, because obviously it's always going to be my opinion on these films, but I really thoroughly enjoy all 10 films on this list. So with that said, let's get cracking with this top 10 list. At my number 10 is Fallen Leaves, a Finnish romantic comedy drama directed by Aki Kaurismäki. And this is about the meeting of an odd couple, or at least they're described as an odd couple, but I don't think that's odd. I'm not sure if that says more about me than about the couple, but I just think this is a really nice, cozy, sort of Sunday afternoon romantic comedy type of film. It's very quietly done, very subtly done. And I enjoy the two characters and the way that their differences are sort of negotiated by them, because the sort of their chemistry and romance is the thing that ultimately shines through. And I think the film does a good job of, the sort of evolution of their relationship, and you see the things happen that sort of, push them apart a bit, but then the things happen that also bring them together. And yes, that sounds, I guess, like a fairly, common scenario for a rom-com. But this one just works extremely well, I think, because it's done in this quiet, thoughtful manner. Coming in here at number 9, I've got a film called Manchester by the Sea from 2016, directed by Kenneth Lonergan. And so if you haven't seen this film, this is about the brother of someone who passes away, and he is left as the guardian of effectively his nephew. So you have this kind of building uncle and nephew relationship. And it's a really beautiful film, I think, with a lot of depth to it. And I think the thing that makes this film successful to me is the way that relationship is portrayed brilliantly by both Casey Affleck as the uncle and Lucas Hedges as the nephew. And their different characters and their differences and the way those are explored, I think you as an audience member are just drawn into that because of the curiosity about the way this uncle-nephew relationship is going to turn out, is what makes this film triumph so much. And I think this is perhaps often cited as the best film from this director, but I mean, I don't know really his other films, but I think this is a fantastic film. Manchester by the Sea is sealed a place in its top 10 here at number 9. Coming in at number 8, I think an often unfairly criticised film for me, and that's almost why I've deliberately included it in my top 10, because I think it is very underrated, and that's True Things from 2021. It stars Ruth Wilson and Tom Burke, directed by Harry Woodliff, who, and this isn't her only appearance as a director on this list of 10 films. I really like the films I've seen from her, basically. But this is, this film demonstrates it's a romantic drama. I think I would describe it as almost just a little bit horror adjacent in the visual style of the film as well, interestingly. But I think what this film does so well is the way it conveys how you feel when you're infatuated with somebody and not able to move past that, not able to make the right decisions because you are just blinded with infatuation by someone. And I think Ruth Wilson, the way she comes across in her performance as her character, is quite something. I am a big fan of Ruth Wilson's. Everything I see her in is usually terrific, and I actually think this is her more underrated, one of her more underrated performances and underrated films. And the way she sort of gets both the agency and the vulnerability of her character to sort of, make her relatable is something quite really, really fantastic about this film. And I think she gets that sense of, how you feel. I think we've all been there, right? Or many of us will have been there that have experienced infatuation with someone and not quite being able to see the wood from the trees. So yeah, that's my pick for number 8, True Things. Coming in at 7, we've got After Sun, directed by Charlotte Wells. Now, I went to see this at the BO5 Film Festival a couple of years ago and was pretty blown away by this film. For me, I think, a lot of films struggle to do the zeitgeist thing very well, or they become very cliched when they attempt to do the zeitgeist thing. But if I was on holiday in the 1990s, this is almost exactly as I remember my childhood holidays being in the 1990s. She captures the essence of that perfectly. It's almost like it's filmed through the camera through a 1990s camcorder as well, a lot of time. But it's done really well and stylistically, despite the attempts at obviously capturing the zeitgeist of that time. It's also a beautiful film, performed brilliantly by Paul Mescal as the father and Frankie Corio as the daughter. Their relationship is a big factor in what makes this film what it was, I think, and what made it successful. And yeah, it's another terrific indie film. I can't stress enough. This is very sad as well, so perhaps one for those of you that like a bit of a tearjerker too. That's After Sun at my number 7. Coming in at number 6, we've got Ex Machina, Alex Garland's directorial debut. I do tend to like his films, but particularly this one, particularly his debut film. This has a burning tension throughout. Yes, it is doing the AI concepts sort of thing, which we have seen done many times before. But the thing about this film, I think, is that it manages to string you along with Domhnall Gleeson's character throughout the runtime of the film. And that is the thing for me, is that, yes, although this film does cover territory we've seen before, it does so in a very intense and clever way, as you kind of get the same level of curiosity as Domhnall Gleeson's character does, I think, throughout the film. Partly also, I think Alicia Vikander's very good as the AI unit. And this is a really good sci-fi thriller from 2015. Now, next up at number 5, definitely this has earned its place, I think, at number 5 on my list. It's a spectacular mafia thriller from 2015 called Subar, directed by Stefano Sollima. It has also been adapted into a TV series. I've not actually seen that TV series. It's also based on true events. This film is starts off with actually a really controversial early scene. But I think if you can move past that very controversial scene, you're in for a treat, because the rest of this film is just this non-stop, breathless thriller with absolutely superb action scenes, a shootout scene in a supermarket, which is alone award-worthy for me. I watched this film. I made the mistake of seeing this right shortly before I was supposed to go to bed, and it kept me up for 2 hours longer because it was just fantastic. Helped along by an M83 soundtrack as well. I think if you like these kind of mafia films, if you like a Scorsese film, for instance, you don't mind blood, you don't mind violence, you don't mind that bit of shock factor and controversy as well, you're in for an absolutely great ride with Subar. I think this is just a great film to watch if you need something with action, and you need that kind of sense of something which, you've got this kind of mixture of betrayal and vengeance kind of running throughout the film, which I think works extremely effectively as well. I mean, Subar, what a film, and one of my favourites from the last 10 years. Definitely, in fact, it is my number 5. Coming in at number 4, we've got a film called The Worst Person in the World, which is the final instalment, or the third instalment, of the Oslo trilogy, directed by Joachim Trier. And my absolute favourite scene in this film, so those of you that haven't seen this is about a girl who's, I think, coming up to her 30th birthday, or is around the age of 30, and her experiences in relationships and the choices she makes. The Worst Person in the World film title is sort of representing, I think, how she feels about herself. And there is this scene in this film. It's absolutely magical. It's absolutely magical because I think it blurs the lines between fantasy and reality. The fantasy bit So the scene itself is where Julie, the lead character, the world around her pauses, so you can sort of see her in a street where everybody around her has stopped walking and the world has paused, but Julie can still, do whatever she wants. And she changes her mind about, so she goes back on a decision, I think. And the blend of fantasy and reality there is brilliant. The fantasy in the way the world has stopped, but the reality in the way she reacts to the world stopping, and the visual, just flair of that scene, just the brilliance of it, will really get you on board. I think it's one of the best scenes I've seen in an indie film in the last 10 years. One of the reasons that's elevated this film to my number 4. I also genuinely think it's a great film, a great study of characters and relationships too. Coming in at number 3, we've got Only You, another film directed by Harry Woodliff, who also directed my number 8 on this list, True Things. Man, I've talked about this film before actually on this channel. I just think it's really special. It's about the romance of a couple who are unable to conceive a child, and it deals with that really sensitive subject matter just fantastically well. And you sort of empathise with both the male character and female character and their points of view in this film. How many films actually manage to do that, to make you empathise with both of them? I mean, it's absolutely brilliant and delicately handled. It has some really emotionally sort of bursting scenes that, again, you might feel a tear or two in some of the scenes in this film. And this film has a 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb, and I hate it when IMDb does this to a lot of independent films. It really underscores them. Rotten Tomatoes has 90% scores, I think, or something in that region for this film, which is much, much more what this film deserves. 6.7 is an absolutely diabolical score for this film. This is a fantastic film about a really sensitive subject matter that successfully pushes the boundaries and makes you empathise for this couple. And I've not even been in this situation myself, but I think the film is so powerful and negotiates this so well, and it's beautiful as well as, I think, as and again as a character study. How you can't not like this film and what it achieves, I just don't understand, but I'll leave that for another time. Coming in at number 2 is Anora, which was actually my number 1 if you watch my other list, on my list of non-horror films from 2024. I won't repeat too much of the same here because you've probably already heard me talk, but I think Mikey Madison is fantastic. She deserves an award. She definitely deserves nomination for her performance in this film. I think she obviously researched her character very well. She researched, apparently, sex workers and what they do, and she went to, I think, strip clubs, and she really got involved in the research towards this film. And her performance is really quite outstanding at the way she conveys, her character. And I think the director's done a really good job in Anora at effectively representing a marginalised, group of people. And showing, what they have to negotiate, and, if this sort of scenario happened, how you have to negotiate that, or how you would have to, what sort of things could happen. It sort of presents the extreme, I think, of this kind of scenario where Anora, this escort, encounters this, Russian oligarch's son and gets herself into this crazy situation. It's absolutely crazy what unfolds if you've not seen this film. But it is just the realism. I mean, it's said a lot about films, I think, that they manage to convey realism, but I can think of no better example of a film that makes you feel like you're with the characters than Anora, except for my number 1, which I think does, again, an equally good job in conveying realism and makes you feel like you're with the group of characters, because my number 1 is Victoria, from 2015, the Sebastian Schipper film, which is one take. That's what makes it even more special to me, is that this film was done in one take with all the actors performing like the entire sequence of this film without stopping for 2 hours. It's just remarkable what was achieved with this film. But not only that, but the film itself isn't a mess. It feels like a perfectly natural sequence of events in the film, and you're taken along with these characters in a sort of almost semi-documentary kind of style. You feel like you're there with them. A performance of Leia Costa, and I think it's Frederick Lau. He is brilliant too. And because of their chemistry, and because I think of the success, the way the film slowly manoeuvres through both the city of Berlin and the sort of drama of the different set pieces, little set pieces that they clearly, I think, set out to make the one take film work. It's just incredible, and it had to be my number one. It may eventually lose out to Anora, but Anora is still quite fresh, and I think putting that at number two was pushing it a bit on this list anyway. But Victoria remains my number one indie film of the last 10 years. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to drop a like and a sub if you think you might enjoy more of this kind of content from me. Otherwise, everybody, hope you're enjoying the festive period. Until next time, it's bye for now.